Joining me today are three leaders of organizations that represent flight instructors and flight schools around the country to discuss just that. Bob Mader with NAFI, Bob Rockmaker with FSANA, and David St. George with SAFE. I'd like to give each of you a quick couple of minutes. Just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your organization. Let's start with you, Bob Mader.
Thanks, Charlie. It's great to be here. NAFI, the National Association of Flight Instructors, is a 53-year-old organization, founded obviously in 1967. If you don't want to do the math, we're dedicated to helping flight instructors be better at what they do. We are raising the bar in professionalism and knowledge, and we share among ourselves, which is why our magazine is called Mentor Magazine, why our weekly newsletter is called eMentor. We have several online products for members and non-members that I'm sure will come up during the conversation. So with that, I think that's a pretty good introduction, and I'll turn it back to you, sir.
Yeah, Bob Rockmaker.
Thank you, Charlie, and thank Redbird for the invitation to the 2020 migration. It's a different time right now in our world, but just to talk a little bit about FSANA, we're 11 years old, so we're I think the youngest. I'm not sure. Maybe David St. George might have started their group there a little earlier than ours, but we were formed in 2009. I called a group of people together at Atlantic Aviation in Philadelphia with the idea of coming together with flight schools to improve the culture of the industry, to improve the increase of pilot population. Safety was important to us as well, although safety has not been a primary focus for the past couple of years due to other business model enhancements that we worked on. So we're still very young. We just launched a new website, by the way, and hopefully the viewers will have a chance to go to that site. We've been working on it for a while, and the COVID came along, and then we went on pause due to that. But we're really here to bring new people in to this industry, number one, and again, help the flight schools to do a better job with their culture. Before FSANA was formed, generally speaking, flight schools were not talking to each other, believe it or not. They saw each other as severe competitors, and that was something that we really needed to see change. We're all in this to lift the boat and really bring the general aviation industry back, hopefully to the 1980s one day. We're way down in the pilot population compared to 1980. So we'll talk about that later. Thank you again for the invite, and good to be with my two other teammates here as well, and colleagues as we go forward.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. David.
Well, thank you, Charlie, and thank you always for these Redbird migrations. It's a wonderful gathering, and unfortunately, yeah, we can't get together because they're always a super time to meet and exchange ideas. So hopefully this virtual forum does that. Anyway, SAFE is 10 years old, so it's about 10, 11, same as you, Bob, and we are a educational not-for-profit and run by the members, so it's an all-volunteer organization, which is a little different. And we elect our board from our members every 3 years. It changes entirely. I'm the executive director, and the objective is to really improve the professionalism of the flight instructor, because if you do that, you reach every pilot with safety. We have pilots in the organization, but the focus is on the flight instructors. Just like NAFI, I mean, we're trying to raise the bar of professionalism. I'm a DPE, and I see all the time the problems. And Redbird, of course, has been a partner since, gosh, I think, Charlie, we did this back in Sun and Fun 10 years ago with those first, getting together. And but this sign of all three of us in the same virtual room is a wonderful thing, cooperating with a common purpose. So thank you for getting us all together.
And thank you for all the work that the three of you and your organizations do for flight training and flight instructors. And I think it makes our industry stronger. We need more of this cooperation. We need more of this kind of uplift. And that's one of the reasons why we do migration. So thank you very much for joining me here today. We touched on, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the difficulties that the current health crisis has brought to us in our organizations and whatnot. But I wonder if I'd like to start with discussing some of those as they pertain to flight training, kind of what we're seeing. And so, Bob Rockmaker, I'd like to start with you. Can you give us some perspective of what are flight schools seeing right now? What is the general state of kind of flight training?
Okay, great question. And for everyone that is tuning into this session, I think probably the most important thing to start with on this overview, Charlie, and everyone here listening, is that flight training right now is really busy. Flight schools across the country are absolutely giving us information, which we're not shocked at all. And I'll explain why I said that in a minute. The schools, especially the schools that stayed open during the COVID, even though they may have been operating at 10%, 15%, or 20% of their total lift capability, really have had that opportunity to not be forced to close their doors. There are schools that have closed their doors, but generally speaking, the industry right now is exceptionally strong. We are encouraging people to continue their flight training. We are not discouraging people. Some of the schools, opted to close. We estimate at the COVID, what I'll call the COVID moment, from that mid-March through the beginning of June, upwards of 25 to 35% of the flight schools were closed completely down, but a lot stayed open at much lower levels of activity, but they kept the doors open. They kept the cash flow coming in. As David and Bob both know, the school owners were instructed, obviously, and they realized you can't force anybody to work, especially with the COVID situation. And so there were flight instructors who opted to not work, which was fine. But generally, the industry is very busy right now across the country, and we're really pleased with that. FASANA was extremely busy during that period of time. My personal summer really didn't start till the second week of July, because there were many governmental organizations at the state level, county level, city level that were closing flight schools down. And what FASANA did was to educate and communicate what the schools could do as part of their right to be open if they wanted to be open through the through the CISA policy guidance. And we worked, and I'm humbly saying this, I really am, but we worked almost 7 days a week. I was on the phone with the largest of flight schools, the small schools, even people that weren't members of FASANA were calling up. We had a pretty big growth spurt in membership for about a 60-day window there, just because people, they really needed help and guidance. And we did bring legal counsel into play on this. And, I think because of the work we did, schools did stay open. They realized they had that privilege and that opportunity. And so going forward, it's a really bright future. I do not see a negative, although it's been tough, obviously, with all the different things that the schools have had to do with, the PPE and so forth. But honestly, we're seeing and hearing things where some schools are actually ahead right now, year to date, which is remarkable. But again, those were schools, for the most part, that continued their marketing. They stayed positive. They didn't go to the negative side. And so we're really proud of all the schools and all the instructors in this country. I think everybody's done a good job. And I hope that gives you a good overview.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. You know, there's a lot of businesses and a lot of sectors that are not have not been as fortunate. So it's great to hear that that the majority of flight schools that are essentially members of FASANA, and I know that there are some flight schools that aren't going to survive this and haven't survived this, but it's great. It's great to hear that for the most part, it's going pretty strong for them. You know,
Right. One thing real quick, and this will be real quick.
Sure.
As I was speaking and sharing this with the audience, flight training has two components in America. We have the domestic American citizens and we have the foreign, okay? And I would be remiss if I did not include a discussion real quickly on the foreign side. The foreign has been impacted much more severely, tremendously, because again, these foreigners are not able to get here, or if they got here, some have been stuck here. If they're done with their training, and they'll eventually get back home. And so from that perspective, I think overall, domestically, I think we've done really well. But on the foreign flight training side, some of the larger schools have definitely seen reductions, severe reductions in student pilot populations. And it's going to take time for that to come back. Our government, I believe, and I'm not on the inside track on that at the White House, but there's certainly things being done by the air carriers. We hear that they're going to be doing more testing at the airports for people traveling by the Part 121 airlines. And hopefully that's going to start to loosen up and get more people coming back into the country for the foreign flight training, because we are really the leader in the world in foreign flight training right now. We have been for the past probably decade as far as that goes, because of our price points, because of the quality of the education, the great instructors, and so forth. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. That is a topic I'd like to touch on a bit more as we a little bit later as well. But it's one thing to say the flight schools are staying open and strong, and there's a totally another aspect of this, which is the individual flight instructors who actually have to be training the students in those schools, and the flight instructors who are not working within the construct of a school but doing Part 61 training on their own. Bob, from a NAFI perspective, how are flight instructors handling this, and how are they weathering the challenges?
Well, first I have to concur with what Bob Rockmaker said. We did a very informal, non-scientific poll of our membership asking what's going on in your world. We did that mid-August. And we all fully expected everybody to be very pessimistic. The world is coming to an end. Things are down. It's slow. I'm hungry. All those things. What's really occurred is there was a huge downturn as the travel restrictions, the lockdowns, what have you, occurred in March and April, and maybe through May. But then everybody said about the end of May, maybe mid-May, business started picking up. A lot of our members said, whether they're at a school or they're individuals, they're busier than ever. And they say the driving, they told us, again, this is not scientific, it's all anecdotal, but they say that the drivers people are a little wary of airline travel. People who are now telecommuting to work have free time. They can get to the airport. They've always wanted to learn how to fly. Now they have the time to do it. So there are those opportunities. And on the coping level, we've seen everything from pilots that say, or instructors, I should say, I make student pilots answer a questionnaire before I get into an airplane with them as to their health and so on, to knowing how to clean the airplane, disinfect it between flights, knowing what cleaning materials will work without destroying touch screens and things like that, making sure throttles, everything people touch in the aircraft. One young lady, I believe she was in Virginia, and if she sees this, I hope I have it right. She's a volunteer in her community making masks, and she made masks for all of her colleagues and students at the flight school where she works, just as a gesture. In my own case, here in the St. Louis area, the two of the schools that I know very well are very, very busy. personally, I'm happy to say I'm in demand, and just having to deal with, because I fly out of St. Louis County, having to deal with the rules of St. Louis, which are different from the county where I live, which is Chesterfield County. And that's an interesting problem. And Bob touched on it for a moment. There are 50 states and however many territories, and 3,200 plus counties in the United States. And there's all these rules that people have to touch. What I don't know is, I haven't done a cross country with a student since all this hit because of the dislocation and everything else. But I'm allowed to go on one, and I'm just wondering if it's going to be different in Jefferson City than it is in the St. Louis area. You know, when I get out of the airplane, is somebody going to be hollering at me, "You're not doing it right"?
Yeah.
So those are the type of things that we see.
Yeah, thanks for that. In addition to being heads of organizations, we all, Bob and David, you're an active CFI and a DPE, and as is the Bob Mader as well, but
Not a DPE.
oh, not a DPE. Sorry about that. Well, Dave, what I'm wondering is, what are you seeing not only from your membership but also being on the front line there? You're continuing to do check rides. You're continuing to talk to instructors. Kind of, what are the biggest challenges and what are the biggest kind of boons to the organization and to individual CFIs and to professionals in this industry right now?
Yeah, well, I've seen both ends of it. This school I often fly with is currently shut down tight because of a COVID event, and I had to steal a plane to get up here to Buffalo today because the facility's actually locked down, closed because one of the instructors tested positive. But we did a poll, and it just came out, and I think, what do we got here? 40% of schools are saying that they are running less. 24% say they're running more. 35% same. So it's all over the market. I think the ones that are really busy are quite a bit more busy, as Bob has said, and that's often the bigger schools that have had the infrastructure to create programs. But I want to look at the positive side, and I want to say that, I think I'm so commendable to our people who are obviously risk managers. I mean, that's what pilots are. That's what flight instructors are. They've handled this pretty well. They've put policies in place, and they've really, been flexible and resilient. And just you guys, at Redbird coming out with that Connect program so you can remotely train in a simulator and pushing it through the FAA so we have Wings credit. I mean, what a wonderful thing. So there's opportunities, in this dark time, but we all want to be careful. We all know that the virus hasn't gone away. I've seen a lot of DPEs are not available. There's a real lack of people testing. I mean, I'm flying 300 miles sometimes for a couple tests to get people moving along and to keep schools going. I know they're not enabling new DPEs at this time with the COVID. I mean, Oklahoma City's not doing classrooms. So, it's impacted right from the FAA on down. But, I guess that it's scattershot. A lot of the older guys, though, DPEs, older CFIs, not flying. So,
yeah, that's interesting. Are you seeing a lot of concern out of from the DPE side, or is it the student side, or is it a little bit of both? What?
That's what I just have a little slide here and popped up, and it said that 63% of the poll we just did said they felt safe while instructing. 20% said no, and 17% unsure. And then we got comments back from quite a few who said, we're just not teaching. We're not getting in planes with people. So I don't know where they're represented. I didn't ask the question as well as I could have, obviously. But yeah, the fact that 20% of people getting in planes don't feel safe, they're kind of whistling through the graveyard. That's kind of tough.
Sure.
May I add something to what David just said about that?
Yeah.
We got some responses from our membership that said, I'm instructing, but I'm only instructing people I have known for years.
Yeah.
I will.
That's right.
In my own airplane with my family or people I've known for years. And an interesting thing happened to me personally. And again, I'm a sample set of one, so you can take this for what it's worth. I was ready to go fly with somebody, a younger person, and he called me up and said, I had the sniffles this morning, and you're in the target age group, so I don't want to go flying with you.
No.
He was more worried than I was. And I'm not poo-pooing COVID. Don't get me wrong. I'm not naysaying at all. But it was just interesting. He was concerned for my health, which was
He's a good risk manager.
Don't worry,
Yeah.
we'll edit this conversation to make you say whatever we want you to. But yeah, Bob Rockmaker, I'd like to go back to something that you had mentioned before about the international students, and specifically about kind of pipeline issues with regards to the flight school's customer base, right? The inflow of new students. With we're seeing a lot of numbers come out about furloughs and layoffs, and obviously the airlines have had a very tough go of it. And I know that I know that a lot of your schools rely heavily on professional pilot pipelines, and I wonder, what are you seeing as far as the strength of those organizations that rely so heavily on that, and where are they going for students now? And
Okay, so it's a really good question, Charlie, and I'm going to give you the best view that I think I can offer as the president and CEO of the Flight School Association of North America, FASANA. Number one, let's take a look at the Part 121 airlines. Let's start at the top this time. I like to normally start at the bottom, but I'm going to start at the top. Just give me a moment on this. Just today, actually, out of Texas, I believe you saw a news release. The country saw a news release about Southwest Airlines, and they're moving a whole bunch of new flights, into George Bush International Airport over there, down there in Texas. Okay, so Herb Kelleher, the founder of Southwest, what a guy! Really, what a guy! Passed away a little over a year ago, January of 2019, and I had the opportunity to meet Herb or be with him at least twice in my lifetime. When I was in airport management. And Southwest has not laid off, and I'll stand corrected on this, but I understand they have not laid off their staffs. They have reduced frequencies, between city pairs, but they've kept everybody basically employed. And, that's a real interesting model, the way they have operated, the fast turnarounds. And where am I going with this? Okay. To stay on the center line, the airlines domestically, because I spoke a couple minutes ago and shared the domestic training versus the international, student training. Domestically, the 121s right now, within the next 3 to 6 months, will be operating back at anywhere between 40 to 70%. Some of them are at 40% right now, touching on 50%, lift, And so, and I'm certainly not an airline CEO, and I don't claim to know everything about the airline industry at all. But as a result of that, I know, for example, Piedmont Airlines, which is owned by American, it's a wholly owned company. They didn't lay off during this entire COVID operation. They've kept flying. They may have pulled some flights, but again, they kept all their people in place. Where did I go with Southwest? Okay, Southwest is going to grow. Southwest right now, in my opinion, has the opportunity within the next 12 to 18 months. And if anybody from Southwest is listening to this, they can certainly confirm it later on. They will become potentially the largest single domestic end-planed 121 carrier in America for domestic, not international. And so the pilot pipeline, it may be a little slow right now. Okay, there's certainly going to be no question about that. But we're encouraging people, to continue with their training. Don't stop your training again. Go through, get those certificates and ratings. If you don't get hired at a flight school, which is where most, commercial zero to hero pilots start their career as a flight instructor, do something else. Stay positive. Stay to the positive side, because the domestic lift is going to come back. And here's why I say it. Human behavior human behavior. Okay, I'm looking at everybody right now through this e-commerce so to speak platform that we're looking and working through, and I see squares. Okay, America, like the rest of the world, has been in squares. We've been containerized for the last 6 months, and I got to tell you, I see Bob Mader there, smiling. He can't wait to get out and do that cross country. I'm sure. I'm flying Thursday, doing my flight, the rest of my flight review. People are containerized and they want to get out, and they're going to be moving around. They're going to go want to see their grandparents, and so I think from a pipeline perspective, yeah, there's going to be some sluggishness, but overall, it's going to start to catch up over the next 6 to 12, 18 months. And that's why, I think it'd be a big mistake for everybody to just quit or, well, I'm going to go do something else or whatever, for a career type person. For the non-career people, get out there and fly. Get above the COVID. Get up to a couple thousand feet and look down on everybody down there. What a blessing. What a blessing. I hope I've given a little bit of insight there. Things are not going to stay this way. They're just not trying.
Yeah. And David, what I'd like to, I've heard some reports from some folks that said people seeking out recreational flights for recreational purposes or private aviation is really starting to increase. I'm wondering, what are you seeing there? Are flight instructors more active with recreational pilots or professional pilots still? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I hate to be, contrary on some points there. I think the airlines are surviving, but when you get down to the flight school level, I see very few schools who are taking discovery flights because they don't want to take people walking in the door. I know the ones that I have seen here not taking discovery flights, they're not signing up new people. I mean, if you start at the bottom instead of at the top, the pipeline has stopped, and there is. Our school down there in Ithaca does a lot of college students, though, and the ones that had started are moving along very nicely. But, I think it's that, like a lot of people said, people are flying with familiar faces, known risk management, but they're not taking the new people in. So there's quite a lack in the startups, at least at the schools that I've seen. As far as the airlines, I will say that perhaps Southwest and these others have not laid off, but the young CFIs who got on board PSA and some of these others, they're all backed up. They're all back to flight instructing. So, what we had in the end of last year, which was, I go to a school and I do a flight test with a CFI and come back a month later, 2 months later, they're already hired by the airlines. We know how fast it was going. That has stopped, but I do believe with Bob it will, regenerate, but it will be probably 8, 12 months. It doesn't mean quit, but it does mean, get your professional chops down as a professional CFI. I think NAFI and SAFE have a very important job to do here, which is, these young people and, career change people really need to improve their flight instructing abilities, because they're going to be there longer. This is not just a pass-through. They really have to be doing a good job. Because it quite frankly, when it was so busy there in the fall, it was just a turnstile for these CFIs, and there was no consistency, there was no quality. It was kind of depressing for an organization that builds professional flight instructors. I'd like to see more of these people stay in the flight instructor field. I'd like to see that part of the organization, that part of the industry get robust again. I resent that the CFI is just a stepping stone to another career. I think it should be a career.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's a good segue to actually it touches on another topic, and we'll just go right there, which is about flight instructor standardization and the struggles that flight schools have had even before this to really get their flight instructors on the same page and standardize their flight instructors to their curriculums. I wonder if Bob Mader, you could weigh in a little bit on what is it that NAFI is doing, what could NAFI be doing, or other organizations, we as an aviation industry or the FAA from a regulatory standpoint, or even flight schools, do to help build that kind of better professional base of flight instructors and move it beyond what David said was as a throughput and into a really a long-term professional kind of career for a lot of these folks, and what does that mean from a standardization standpoint at those flight schools?
What I tell every young flight instructor who is using, and I want to use the word using, but it's the only word I can think of, is using the flight instructor rating as a stepping stone to a airline or corporate job. I tell them that this is their opportunity to learn to become a captain. This is their first time as the leader of a crew. Think about it. When we sit down with somebody who's never flown an airplane in their life, and you have to take them and say, this is how you turn on the engine, or whatever, simple things that we don't even think about as experienced pilots. We're learning how to brief a flight crew. We learn to talk about the risk management piece. We know how to set people's focus on the task at hand. Okay? This is an excellent opportunity. As far as building being a flight instructor as a career, whether it's parallel to your other career, I was 40 years in the rail industry, in the operating end of the rail industry, and I was a flight instructor at the same time. So it's a parallel career, and they both informed each other from a safety standpoint. But there's other people who do it, are flight instructors as well as being airline pilots. Brian Schiff is a great example. Okay. Barry Schiff, his father, same example. And there are people that can be flight instructors, or are flight instructors, I should say, as a career. What we're doing in NAFI is we have the professional development program, which goes beyond what I will call the fundamentals of instruction, and explains how to be a better businessman. We touch on things that you'll never see in the instructor's handbook. Everything from the psychology of marketing to how to, are there some tips and tricks for running your business, to deeper dives into the behavioral sciences, along with the mechanics of being a pilot or being a flight instructor. We have also added, we have Mentor Live. We're really proud of that program. That's this is a shameless plug for that. It's every third Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central. If anybody wants to see it, and it's not just for our members, it's for the entire aviation community. We touch on safety subjects, and we invite student pilots. We invite all pilots and their instructors to come watch these. We've had something like I'm not sure what the increase is, but we have 7,000 individual email addresses just from that program alone, and they're all wings approved, which is a great thing. We've done a lot of other things along in social media. The 10 challenge question. Yeah, it's not a formal curriculum, but it's a way for flight instructors to see how other successful flight instructors or new flight instructors they can observe how people who've been successes have succeeded. That's a terrible sentence, but what process they followed along the way to become successful at their careers. David, you'd probably be a great interview candidate for that. But we have that. We have, or you, Bob, we have briefing, NOTAMs, briefing room. But the core of it is things such as our professional development program, which has 30 courses, Mentor Live, our magazine, our continuing efforts with the magazine, of course, the weekly newsletter, which is I shouldn't say that. We work hard. David Hipshman, our editor, works hard on that. That's a touch base for our members. So those are the things. And we're looking at future products. We're working on NAFI's strategic plan as we speak, and I think you'll be excited at some of the stuff we've got coming down the pike. Not ready for publication yet, but some cool stuff coming.
Hey, Charlie.
Yeah.
I'd just like to share a viewpoint. I think that this topic of professionalism, with the educators is really important, very critical. The concept of getting someone to be a full-time flight instructor, that is a challenge. It is a huge challenge. And the biggest reason it's a challenge is compensation. Okay. It comes down to compensation. I've had that discussion with the founder of SAFE, Doug Stewart, and I've talked about that a couple years ago. And I said, Doug, somebody can go out and make $150 an hour flying a machine, or 200 or 225. The average flight instructor right now today, basic, for ab initio training, is out there at $25 to $30 an hour, give or take, is what their share of the per hour consumer, fee is going to be. So, the question is, where does the money come from to pay the instructor? If we want to see fewer and fewer people entering the market, then we can go and pay the instructors $50 to $75 an hour. But now between aircraft rental and the instructor, we're going to be at I'm coming up. The word is escaping me right now, and this will have to get edited out. But it's diametrically opposed. The economics just don't work. The dollar is the dollar, and so I think having standardization, more professionalism is very critical for both SAFE and NAFI from that perspective. To make pilots good, safe pilots, at that ab initio level, whether they're going to be zero to hero or they're just doing it for business and or recreation. But it's going to be it's beyond. I don't have the ability to come up with any solution. We've talked about it, and you can have little bumps in the hourly rate, and a very experienced instructor like the two fellows that are here right now, between Dave and Bob, they may be out there at $50 to $75 an hour based upon their experience and so forth, which is fine. But at the typical flight school, where you've got a standardized, what we'll call a standardized business model, where everybody comes in the funnel at this end and they go out with either a private or they get, maybe the instrument rating. Not everybody wants to be a career pilot. Let's face it. That's wonderful. Just getting people in is the start line. We've got to get them to the racetrack. If we don't get them to the racetrack, they can't even get in the race. They don't know what it's like to race around an oval. As my associate Mario Andretti would say, you got to get in the car and you got to feel it, and you got to feel that grip and everything else. And so really, I don't think there's a simple answer to that, but I think professionalism and standardization is important, especially with that quick turn when CFIs are going to be there for, 8 to 10 months at some schools and maybe up to 24 months at other schools based upon the number of students going through the throughput. They can build that flight time back before pre-COVID, and they were out the door. As I think David said, they were out the door, boom, 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 out the door, and already in the right seat of a 75 or 85 passenger jet flying packs around, flying people around. So.
No, what I wanted to say to Bob, though, in my sales pitch, I'm flying captain in a jet, and when you get a person in the right seat, it is very obvious if they've been a CFI. I mean, they have that kind of professionalism. They have that calm. They've already seen things that are much scarier because they've taught students, and I got to say, I ran a flight school for 20 years, and I saw all kinds of flight instructors, but the best sales pitch to a new flight instructor getting into the industry is that, and I think everybody that's been there will verify this. Those first 100 hours, 500 hours are going to be the largest learning experience. And as NAFI's doing and as SAFE's doing, get yourself a good mentor to work with you and build those skills, because you're going to be in the right seat of something. Use every hour that you have in the cockpit with a student to build those skills so that when you do get in that right seat, you're a better learner. You've taught your people how to learn, but you are still a learner as a CFI. That is the critical thing NAFI and SAFE are trying to get through to our members, is it's a lifetime process. We're not done. You're going to get in a little jet. You're going to get in a learner jet. You're going to get in a bigger jet. You're going to, the ERJ, you're going to be like the shifts and fly the big, so that's what you have to think about. But at every level, you have to take it seriously, not as a stepping stone. I'd love if everyone stayed in the flight instructor world, but as Bob Rockmaker's saying, we're going to need them in the airlines. Economically, nah, you're not going to make a great living. But there are people, you look at your Max Trescotts, your Doug Stewarts, the people that are on the top, and that's why the master instructor program's there. Once you are been in the industry for a while and you get your credentials built up and you become a master instructor and you have a presence online and in the industry, you do command quite a bit of, then it can be a living. And, those people are examples everyone should follow. And I will mention Greg Brown, too, who wrote The Savvy Flight Instructor. That book is a keystone for anyone that wants to succeed as a flight instructor. So, it's you get out of it what you put into it, and I got to say, I saw a lot of attitude with these pass-through CFIs that wasn't very good because it was happening so quick. It was handed to them. I think for the next couple of years, we're going to have to work at it a little harder. But what I see in the industry is very encouraging.
Well, this is a good conversation, and we could go on all day about this. But I do want to shift gears a little bit and talk about something else before we completely run out of time here. New technology. The pace at which new technology is coming online, and the pace of innovation nowadays seems to be accelerating. I don't know if that's actually true, but certainly seems to be accelerating. And it's certainly outpacing the regulatory environment. There's no secret that our training fleet is aging rapidly and is aged and needs to be replaced in a lot of cases, and you're seeing a lot of that happen. The new deliveries coming out of Textron and Piper and Cirrus are good examples of people starting to equip with this stuff, and the new innovation from avionics manufacturers like Garmin and whatnot. But there's also this development with the autonomous aircraft stuff, the drones, the electric propulsion, and so on and so forth. And I'd just like to get your perspective from a flight school and a flight training perspective, all three of you. Where is this going, and what does this mean for our flight training organization? And Bob Mader, I'd like to start with you real quick. What are you seeing, and where do you think this is going, and how do you think this is going to impact flight instructors?
That's a great question. When I first learned how to fly, 95, Loran was still a thing. Okay. GPS was the technology. And whoever dreamed of a G1000 or an Avidyne system, where did that come from? That just fell out of the sky on us one day, those technologies. So in roughly 2003, 2004, my point is that we're not sure. It's very difficult to predict the future. Arthur Clarke and Isaac Asimov always complained that they try to write something and they never quite get it right when they wrote their science fiction. Clarke said he only invented one thing in science fiction, and that was the communication satellite. The point I'm making is we will see some dramatic shifts coming. Let's take a look at autonomous vehicles. I'm deliberately not saying unmanned. I'm not talking about a drone necessarily. There's a lot of pressure out there for people to start flying fully autonomous taxis. I saw at HAI 2 years ago, I want to say it was Bell, had a pilotless version of one of their helicopters, not flying yet, but they had a full-scale mock-up of what it would look like. And so how many Sigma do we go to before we say we're going to turn these loose in the national airspace? How much training do we have to give people who own these devices or will be sitting in one to do what they need to do if the electronics decides to go somewhere else or do something stupid? And the analogy I'll use here is, do we even train kids how to deal with a blown out tire when they learn how to drive anymore? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not hearing about it anyway, but I haven't taught anybody to drive in a long, long time. The point I'm making is that technology will have quite a bit of impact. We are seeing that impact today. This is an example of the impact right here. A year ago, we wouldn't have even considered doing migration as an online meeting. Now, circumstances have forced that. But I can't imagine next year, Charlie, when we're in person down at San Marcos, and I hope we are, that there won't be some online component to get other people in on the action. Look at how the Pilot Proficiency Center worked this year, using your product and Connect. Using Redbird flight simulators and Connect, as David has pointed out. We have this event has taught us has taken remote education from the somewhat exotic university system or online degree system into something that's commonplace. Everybody's buying Zoom, GoToMeeting, using Google Meet, whatever product they prefer. Down the road, I see more interactive tablet-based training opportunities, more interactive. I can imagine somebody, Sporties or the Kings coming up with something where you as a flight instructor can interact with their instructor in some magical way on a tablet or on a laptop. And oh, by the way, I'm saying tablet. Somebody, George Lucas, I won't say somebody, George Lucas envisioned three-dimensional projections and put it out there in Star Wars. How far is somebody, somewhere out there, one of the big electronic manufacturers is trying to come up with the next best virtual reality thing to make interacting with all these devices easier and and that will in turn come to us and help us interact with our students in a remote fashion, or provide them with virtual reality experiences. Redbird's already doing that, and the other manufacturers are already doing that. The airlines are going to do that with the Level Ds and so on. It's a Redbird device is a virtual reality device. Now, should we go from zero ab initio all the way through to the end in a training device to learn how to fly? No, but it's certainly your model, Redbird's model of train first and then go out and fly the real airplane is a real facilitator of making it go faster. So technology is just going to go faster on this. Where will we be in 5 years? I think we'll see more devices, more opportunities for virtual reality to do this stuff. Where will we be in 10 years? Well, ask me in 5 years what it'll look like 5 years beyond that, because technology is moving amazingly fast. There are a lot of people out there innovating, coming up with ideas.
Yeah. So David, there's been a lot of news come out about new avionics manufacturers and increased automation in the cockpit and the new safety enhancements that some of that automation brings to us. But it changes the role of the pilot and the way the pilot interacts with the plane, and by extension, it changes the role of the flight instructor as well. I wonder if you could weigh in a bit on how does a flight instructor continue to keep up, and how does that role change as we see more and more increased automation in the cockpit?
Very good point. When we had that CFI Pro, our first one there, and we had all the instructors in, a lot of them were older people, and a lot of them were not teaching because they were terrified of the new technology. They weren't keeping up. And we realized one of our big roles is to train people in that technology, to make sure that they're capable of delivering that technology. I mean, I want to go back to when I learned, and it was 1976 pack type thing. I've always been the round gauge guy. And when I got into flying commercially, I had to learn all this class stuff, and my FOs had, the tablet, and they were faster than me. It's like, we can't have that. I had to learn all the technology and get up. So I feel that. And, CFIs, to be good in the field, have to really be up on technology. And I think it impacts our industry at two levels. One is at the level of the actual machines that are flying. We're seeing this increasingly. We saw the original airliners had, 4 people on board? And then it was 3 people with an engineer in back, and now it's 2 people in front. And I do believe we're going to see, and it's going to impact the whole pipeline. We're going to see single pilot airline operations, no doubt about it. I mean, they do it in freight runs already, and it will just be a matter of when the passengers will accept that. I mean, the technology is there to do that. So that's on the one level. On the second level, you know, in the training field, as Bob said, it's a wonderful opportunity. We've all experienced in the last 6 months more online content than we can possibly shove down our throats. Any night, there's going to be 5 or 7 shows all vying for our time online. That's wonderful. But it's also a challenge, you know, and every CFI, if they want to be viable, has to be able to deliver online content in that manner. So it's an opportunity, it's a challenge. In other words, the people who have been comfortable just sitting in the right seat talking now have a new way to deliver content, and they have to, because they can't always get in a plane with someone. You know, with COVID, you can't teach that way. I just tested as a DP, I just tested a woman, and she had done all her final, you know, preparation on the oral on Zoom. Wonderful way to do it. You know, it's so, you know, it's here now. And as Bob said, it's changing so fast. It's faster than we can believe. But it's also going to impact the industry in the cockpit, you know, and we've all seen the Autoland. You know, what an amazing device, so that now you can press a button and your TBM or your M600 or your Pilatus is going to land itself, your Cirrus jet. What a bit of, you know, talk about safety, Bob, you know, and that's your big bell to ring, but that is going to be a huge leverage for safety. But that's only the beginning. I'm sure there's going to be other tools too. But in the content delivery, you know, YouTube, everything's online, everything's on an app, you know. So my shameless plug would be get the Safe Toolkit app. You know, that's how Safe delivers a lot of its content, you know. That's been out for 5 years, and it's, you know, a continuous tool, and that's how you guys do it too. But that is obviously the standard. You know, it's not cutting edge. It's every day. And where it goes from there, I don't know. I do love, though, the Connect, and I do love that remote training idea that a CFI in Idaho can log in and teach somebody at Farmingdale, and they can, you know, have a meaningful educational experience using that kind of technology. That is a wonderful tool. You know, saves on money, saves on all that exposure that we're getting. So,
well, I appreciate it. I could
work.
let you run on all day talking about how great the things that we develop are, but I think maybe we should bring it back to.
No, but you think of what a game changer that is. That
Yeah.
really is a game changer.
Well,
I'm in awe.
I'd like to, you know, we've touched a little bit on new content delivery and the new way and technology that enables new ways of training. But Bob Rockmaker, I'd like to know from a flight school perspective, you know, especially as it pertains to the machines that are flying and the types of students that are coming through the door. There's been a lot of talk about electric propulsion. Aerospace has done a great job with that and continues to build, other organizations as well. There's been a lot of talk about autonomous flight and what does this mean. So as a whether you believe in fully autonomous pilotless vehicles on the near horizon or not, the question is, as a flight school owner, what do you do with that? How do you continue to be relevant, prepare yourself for the future, and what are flight schools doing to kind of re-equip their fleets in order to kind of stay ahead of this curve?
Well, you just added another 2 hours to this. To be very honest with you, and you know, I think, and I'm gonna really try to stay on the center line and very bulleted here. You know, number one, you know, today especially, flight school owners and operators and managers, they truly have been challenged. The COVID has certainly, you know, changed business models. You know, they've all, for the most part, they've taken and created their COVID manuals. You know, we created a COVID manual and gave it out to everybody. Actually, we just didn't give it to members. We shared it with every flight school that wanted a COVID manual. We just gave it to them. And I think, you know, when it comes to the automation in the cockpit, look, we're all experienced airmen. You know, Dave and Bob have more flight time than I do. I've got, I don't know, 1,300 hours, whatever. I'm a kid. I'm a little baby kid compared to these guys. But the fact is, we've had aircraft that can fly 6,000-7,000 nautical and land, you know, Cat 3A in some foreign country for what, 10 years or more at this point in time. And the airline captain operates the machine manually for a total of maybe 5 minutes on the departure, and maybe 5 minutes on an arrival, depending on if the SID and the STAR are automated and so forth. So, and whether they do elect a hand fly or not, is up to them, I'm sure, with operating procedures, but within that airline. But I think when it comes to what is a flight school owner going to do right now, they're really focused right now, Charlie, on getting back to a more normal day-to-day operation, number one, and they're waiting to see when George By and others are going to really start to be able to deliver the machines. It's great to have a 5 and a 10 and 15-year plan, but at this point, I think speaking for most of the flight schools in the country that are operating today, they're worried about and focused on that focus factor. How do we get through what we're in right now, and how do we continue to build and get back and go forward? Earlier in the session, we talked about, I think Dave talked about the smaller schools, and honestly, every flight school in this country ought to be a member of our association. What we have done in the past several months to help schools to understand what they could or could not do under the guidance, for example, it saves schools. I mean, truly, we've had phone calls from people saying, I should have been a member of this thing years ago, et cetera, And I think, again, to answer your question, it goes back to a simple, well, what can schools do right now? If they can't acquire an electric aircraft and put it into their fleet, they're not in a position to do that. What are the airports doing? I spent 11 years in airport management at a Part 139 certificated airport. Okay, where's the electric going to come from? Is that electric going to be AIP eligible? Are those airport managers, the airport sponsor, going to go get AIP dollars under the FAA grant program to run a bunch of, maybe low KVA cable underground, because it's all underground? You're going to have to charge batteries if it's electric. And I think that there's some real components that need to be further honed beside the aircraft themselves. You have the aircraft, that's one item, but you have the other components. Who's going to change out the batteries? Who's going to pay for that? The aircraft cost versus who's going to do the actual labor of getting the batteries in and out of those airplanes. Are they going to be charged in 1 hour? And these are questions we've asked, and we're not getting a lot of answers, Charlie. We're not getting the answers. So, if you were to say to me, or someone says, well, are there going to be electric airplanes? Sure, yes, there are. And they're out there now. But the typical flight school owner needs to have, and the folks that make these aircraft, the electric aircraft right now, they know, and I'm sure that both Dave and Bob will agree, I hope they'll agree, you do not want to send a student out, with an instructor when they only have an hour or 90 minutes of flight time on a machine. Okay. I don't have that answer. That's not the world of batteries is a whole different discussion. And this is not a battery webinar or seminar, but you need to have a certain duration of flight time. And then when you do the cross country work, you got to make sure you're going to an airport that's going to have the charging mechanisms to bring the cells back up again, And so I think, it's a great question. And I think pilots, we're always trained to be looking down the runway. If, depending on the speed we're flying an aircraft at, the type of aircraft, we're going to be 50 miles ahead of it, 100 miles ahead of it, even 200 miles ahead of it. But I do think, honestly, I might be a little passionate on this, but right now, I think flight schools are just trying to, continue to do business, bring their business back, and we're looking forward to the new technology. The light sport aircraft technology is already here, and that's a whole nother topic. LSA, 1,320 pounds. FASANA is starting a committee. We've already started we had our first committee meeting. We need to see, this industry desperately needs to see new training aircraft. And the flight training aircraft today that are out there, there's wonderful aircraft from Cessna, Piper, Diamond, Cirrus, but many flight schools just cannot justify spending $300,000 and $400,000 and $500,000 for a new airplane to take a new student who's going to bang it on the ground for the first couple of hours, in the beginning days, it all boils down to let's fly the airplane, and I am a pilot. Some folks think, oh, he's just a business guy. I can fly airplanes, and I've got different ratings and certificates. And it all comes down to in the beginning, and Dave and Bob, I'm sure can comment on this. I hope they would. We got to teach people to fly the airplane first, not fly the computer. Let's fly the airplane. And then from there, once you learn to fly the airplane, then you move on to some other things inside the cockpit, in the avionics suite and so forth. So, hopefully there's going to be some increases. You're a Gamma board member, Charlie. Okay. We got to get the LSA into play here. One of our board members just bought an LSA from Vashon, and there's some really good equipment out there. And again, I'm not being critical of any one OEM, but a price point when LSA first came out, the price point everybody was targeting was that $100,000 to $125,000. Well, that's disappeared. The magical whiz bang went away, and it's at least a $250,000 game for some, but there are others out there that are at the 125, the 150, and they're great airplanes. So I hope that the industry needs new aircraft coming in. The parts availability on 40 and 50-year-old aircraft is getting really tough. The parts cost is getting tough for these flight schools. So FASANA is, as I said, working with a committee to begin a more focused push to bring more good aircraft into the flight training mix in the United States.
Well, thank you so much. I'd love to go on. I'd love to sit here and continue this conversation, but we have run a bit long. But I appreciate you guys taking your time to speak to us today and to speak to this topic. Thank you so much for joining us.